Hello. I just received my new Starlink satellite dish and router, and I'm putting together this video to share with you what I think my challenges are going to be. I am currently a property owner near the Oklahoma-Texas state line, which I believe is new to the beta release, and I'm going to be setting up my dish in a very tree-shrouded area, so I'm going to have a challenge of finding a spot and getting it set up. My fear is I'm going to have to run a very long line and use all 100 feet of the cable between the dish and my router. So stay tuned. I think I'll have some challenges. I'll do the best I can filming this and share with you maybe some solutions that will help you down the road in setting up your Starlink satellite. The biggest challenge I have on my property is I have a lot of mature trees. They're between 30 and 50 feet tall and have a pretty good canopy. I do have a few holes where I've cleared out for driveways and buildings, but again, the trees are tall and narrow, so it's going to make it difficult to get a good range for the dish to see the satellites. Very narrow range. If you can kind of glance at my property and see the mature trees and the canopies, which that's why we love the property. So our goal is not to take any trees out unless we absolutely have to. So we're going to try to work around that initially. And as I look through the property, there's going to be definite challenges to finding the correct spot. So this property we have is kind of a vacation area for us. We have a little cabin we've built out there and cleared quite a bit of land when we built our buildings. Now, if you kind of look above the cabin, I thought about putting on the roof, but it's a real narrow circle. The antenna you're looking at there is a hex beam. It's for amateur radio. It can get around the trees and get a signal. The building I have across the way is a brand new building. It's a garage I built, and I cleared quite a bit of land when I put it up. So I'm hoping that I have enough space here to allow the dish to ping the satellites and give me a good strong signal. But as I look at some of the other videos, you need to have a pretty good path. So I got some sky there. We'll see if this is going to work, because this is really the only choice I have at the moment. I did climb up on the roof of the garage just to see, and you can tell I have trees along the lower edge of my Starlink app. So that's the question, is that going to block enough of my view where I get interruption? So more to come. As I mentioned, I only have 100 feet of cable that comes with the dish, and these two buildings are about 85 feet apart at their closest point. So that's my challenge. Plus I have to get the cable through all these trees. I'm not going to bury it. I may bury it in the future, but right now I'm just going to run it from A to B in the air. So I'll have to come back and trim these trees up. So I got a lot of challenges here: trees, cable length, and view from my roof of my garage. So I'm going to take my tree pruner and just go down the path of where I think the cable is going to run between the two buildings and just snip any branches off that may impact it. You know, obviously concerned in a storm where you have branches hitting on the cable could damage the cable and do some bad things. So I'll go through these, get these all cleared out, get it smooth, so it should be good to go here when I'm done. So our motivation to put Starlink up is obviously to get internet. We currently have a couple options, but they're not great. We have HughesNet, we have a Verizon hotspot, then I use my AT&T hotspot as well off of my phone. My wife and I both work from here. The hotspots seem to do okay. The problem we run into is the summer months. The leaves go on the trees and blocks the signal. I'll actually share some testing when I get the Starlink up and really show you the difference I can get from a signal standpoint and compare HughesNet, Verizon hotspot, and AT&T hotspot along with Starlink. So hopefully this all works out and we're able to get an improved internet service. Obviously we invest some money into Starlink. and hopefully it pays off for us down the road. So here are the supplies I'm going to use to string the cable. I bought 1/8 inch galvanized steel cable. I bought about 125 feet. It runs about 34 cents a foot, give or take. And then basically eye bolts to secure each end. I'm going to use the one with the nut on the metal building, and then I'm going to use the one on the screw end to screw into a stud on the house. And then just various carabiners and tightening devices where I can tighten the tension up on the cable. And then I intend to use the zip ties to secure the dishy cable to the house along there. And I'm going to start with this corner up here in the upper left, and then shoot it straight across to the house. From where this picture was before I actually cleared out the trees, but it's going to be straight across to that corner. So stay tuned, because it's going to be a challenge, and I don't know if I'll be able to film while I put it up, but I'll definitely show you a finished product. Actually, I also wanted to share my challenge of where I'm going to put it on top of the building. This is obviously a metal building with, these are like C-channel cross members, and then some, they're not really I-beams, but they're kind of a giant C-channel cross members that go across the roof. So I'm going to stick it either on that one there, right there at the corner of the building, and so the weight is laying down on there. I want to put it on one of the beams so it doesn't make the metal siding bend down, or I could stick it on this one, which is, I think, is more likely. It's a little bit thicker beam. But I may put it and straddle that, and then put a couple pieces of wood to the lag bolts can actually go into to keep it secure on the roof and not moving around. That should be pretty good strength for it. So I'm drilling a hole through the C-channel to put the eye bolt through. I'm going to use the eye bolt on this end with a washer and a nut on the end, and just tighten it into the frame. Here's a close-up view of the hole. I try not to disturb the spiders too much, because they pretty much own this part of the building, so they didn't tend to want to come out when I was making all that racket. But anyway, I'm going to thread the eye bolt through, and then tighten it down so it's good and secure. So I used a wrench and tightened it down, and got it pretty snug with the washer against the C-channel, and pulling the panel into the C-channel. This is the outside view. As you can tell, I actually got it on that seam, which I was trying to avoid, but I can't seem to drill anything straight. But anyway, I'll throw some caulk on there just to fill in any holes. So I'm going to repeat the process on the house side of the cable connection. Here I'm using an eye bolt with a screw in. I'm just going to pre-drill a hole and attach it. I have a stud that runs up and down this seam I just showed you, and I believe I can just screw it in there and get a good secure anchor for my cable. And then at that point I can attach my cable line to both ends and have a pretty secure, tight run. But before I string my cable between the two buildings, I do need to mount my dish. What I'm going to do is actually put some 2x4s on the underside of the building, so the lag bolts have something to dig into when they come through the sheet metal. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to put it on both sides of my my support beam to give it a little bit extra strength as well. So I'm going to pre-drill the hole so the lag bolts kind of go in real easy without splitting the wood. Have an old scrap 2x4. Happens to be treated lumber. I don't think it matters one way or another. I'll cut this board in half and do the exact same thing on the back side, and then straddle the I-beam when I mount it. I do want to apologize. I have a gap in my videoing here, so I'm going to show you kind of the end state As I mentioned, I put the two boards underneath. I secured the lag bolts down through the roof to grab onto it. It should give you plenty of support from a strong wind. And then this is the top view. I can tell you the putty that comes with it is very unforgiving. I had it in the wrong spot, and it's kind of difficult to move, so just be aware on that end. And then the cable is shorter than I want, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I had to take out all the pieces other than a carabiner to get it tight. I had too much slack in the long cable. You can see I zip tied it to the cable going across. This is the other end going into the house. I do have a little, it's too tight for me. I'm gonna actually take out one of these screws I have in the bottom. I was trying to create a drip loop, and it's really too tight, so I'm going to remove one of those just to give it a little bit of slack. I don't want to strain the cable going in that coming from the dish. I was able to get it inside the building between 8 and 10 inches in length, which was great until I hit the power block. So very happy with that, and plus I can run my Wi-Fi cable as far as I want. Now, one thing I didn't like is the cable in front of the shed. So I'm going to attempt to raise that eye bolt up about 3 feet straight up to the corner, and where I can tuck the extra cable in underneath that eave to kind of hide it and make it aesthetically more pleasing to look at. So as I mentioned, I was going to do some speed test comparisons between my current internet providers, and I just selected a random website, and hopefully the quality of this video is pretty decent. But the first one we're looking at is my Verizon hotspot. Pretty decent ping, but the download speed, 2.6. Now I can tell you, my wife and I often work from this location on occasion, and we can do Zoom calls with not a lot of issues using the Verizon. We typically need 3 bars to get a good signal. In the summertime, we only typically get 2 bars. I think we're working off 2 bars on this test from the closest Verizon tower. And this is, ironically, we get very little upload and very little download, but decent ping. So not horrible from a day-to-day standpoint when we're working, just doing email and Zooming. The next test we're going to look at is actually my HughesNet. I'm going to do it on the 5 gigahertz frequency. I did do it on both, and we typically get the same numbers either way, the 2.4 versus the 5 gigahertz frequency. And right out of the gate, you see my ping, 790. So when we're doing Zoom calls with a 790 ping, there's a lot of delay between people talking, so it really makes it impractical. Pretty decent download speed though. I really had no complaints there. There's quite a bit of data moving across there. But as you can tell here, we're struggling from an upload speed. I don't think this test even registered, if I remember correctly. That happens time to time where things just don't seem to want to function properly. So this is the HughesNet. Not great numbers to deal with. And this next one we're looking at is actually going to be my hotspot off of my AT&T phone. It's a separate tower than the Verizon tower. They don't share. They're actually opposite directions of each other. Here I'm working off 2 bars. I may get a 3rd bar when there's no leaves on the tree, but typically summer I'm working 1 to 2 bars, so a little bit of struggle. I am doing a close location. The Dallas is the closest one I could find. Pretty decent ping. Again, your download speed is going to be around 2, which makes it zoomable when you're actually trying to do video conferencing. So it does work. But again, we're going to struggle from an upload speed. So the AT&T hotspot is again the challenge. You can kind of see why we were looking for different options in the area for internet, because we just struggle for consistent good internet. It's hard to watch stream movies up there. It really is a challenge, and we want to be able to do more over the internet. So the last one I'm going to test here in a second is going to be the new Starlink. Again, we know it's beta. We know there's challenges. And we know there's gaps in satellites. But if you do a comparison on these, you'll obviously see a big difference from a speed standpoint. So Here we go is Starlink in comparison to those. So right out of the gate, ping, decent ping. I'd like it lower, but beggars can't be choosers considering what I'm dealing with right now. And obviously download speed is fantastic from what I'm used to dealing with. Approaching 150. And then the upload speed, again, consider I'm averaging less than 1 or 2, somewhere in that range. I got a decent upload speed for data going both directions. Extremely happy with it. So right now I am not complaining because what I have with Starlink is 10 times better than any of my other systems. I think most people are familiar with the Starlink satellite map that you can watch on the internet. As I mentioned, my property's on the Oklahoma-Texas state line, so you can kind of see the current coverage. There are gaps in the network. Obviously out here they're showing some where there's no coverage, and we'll get that over our property from time to time. I can tell you that we did stream some videos with the Starlink, and even when it showed we had no coverage outside of the circles, we were actually still streaming. So I think that we're very optimistic around the use. So again, we hope this works out. Maybe some more videos later. I just wanted to share this experience in our setup, and hopefully this helps other people in the area and make some decisions if they want to go down this particular path. So thanks for watching 73, and hope to catch you down the road.